Hey, it's me, Jeff Smith, Product Manager for SQL Developer. And I'm not tricking you. I just wanted to remind everyone who our old friend was, and it'll help understand where we're going in the future for Oracle SQL Developer. This is the product that originally came out in 2005, and we've built a user audience of around 7 million people around the world. It's the de facto GUI for the Oracle database, and we're in the process of turning this, or I guess evolving this to its next life, its second life, its best life, so to speak. So I don't want to scare anyone. This is not going away anytime soon. It's going to take us a long time to build out all of these great features you've grown to love in the last 2 decades into the new hotness. But today what I want to do is show you what we're building, give you an idea of what it can do, and I'm going to try to do all of that in less than 15 minutes. So this is not going to be a super deep dive. It's going to be the highlight reel. So if you've been hearing me talk about this, or if you've heard someone else mention it, you'll have an idea of what everyone's talking about and why you might want to give it a look. All right, so let's say goodbye to SQLDev. And let's say hello to Visual Studio Code, or as a lot of people call it, VS Code. Now, this is put out by Microsoft. It's free. It's also open sourced. This works on almost every platform you can imagine, both the Pentium old school x86 processors and the new ARM-based processors. So if you're on the new Macs, this will work. If you're even on the ARM-based Linux or Windows, VS Code works there. And what this is you can kind of think of it as like a Notepad+++. Like, it's a super powerful editor, and one of the reasons people like it, not just for the really good editing capabilities it has, but it has this extensions framework where other developers, other programmer enthusiasts can build extensions to give more power to what VS Code can do. And that's what we're doing here at Oracle. So we're building, or we have built, a SQL Developer extension for VS Code. So to get started, the first thing you want to do is open VS Code and click on this little collection of boxes button in the toolbar, and this will bring up the extensions browser. And in here, what you want to do is you want to search for SQL Developer. And what you want to look for is our logo right here. Now, I've already installed it, but if you have not installed it, then you can click the install button from here, or if you hard click to open the extension description, you can click the install button from here. Once you click that, you don't have to do anything else. Like, there's no need to go sign up for an account on oracle.com. There's no end user license agreement to click through. There's no requirement for you to go and figure out which Java you need to get started. Everything's self-contained, and everything's really easy to upgrade as new versions come out. Actually, we've done 3 or 4 updates since we put the new version out, and it's a seamless upgrade experience as opposed to the old SQL Dev, where you would completely put down a whole new copy of the application and move your settings over. This is one of the nice benefits of VS Code, is the ecosystem and just how seamless everything is. Now, once the extension is activated, it'll take 30 seconds, 90 seconds, it just depends. You might be asked to refresh or to reopen VS Code. Not always, but sometimes. If you do, there's a button there to do that, and it'll just pop right back up. Once it's up, you're going to see our logo in the toolbar tray right next, or around the same place where you have the extensions button. And when you click that, that activates our extension. All right. Now what you're going to see as a first-time user is a big blank connections panel over here with a big fat blue button that says, hey, create a connection so you can get started. Now you can use our extension without a database connection, but most of the fun's going to happen inside a database. So let's create a connection really quickly. Or what I'm going to do is show you an existing connection that I've defined. So to create a new connection, you can just hit the plus button up here, or to edit an existing connection, you can select your connection and hit the pencil button. So this is going to look really familiar if you've created connections before in the old SQL Dev. So we're going to have a connection name, and it's good to use really nice names because the name is going to show up in a couple of different places. I've used some of these emoji characters to kind of have this connection pop out, so it's just easier for me to see. I'm going to create a connection. I'm going to have a username and password. If we're using a highly privileged account, we might need to change the role. We can browse our TNS list if we want. I'm just going to go with the basic connection. And we just need how to get to the database. So what server is it on, what port's it on, what's the name of the service we're going to connect to. We have the test button here. Down here it will say the status of what's happening. And then I can just hit save. And then when I'm done with this, you'll notice this is kind of opened as a file. I can just close this. And now if I come back over here to the tree, I can right click and say connect. And this will expand the tree item with the contents of the database, just like we have in the old SQLDev. So I've got my list of tables for the HR schema, views, and so forth. Now if I expand tables, I can start opening these objects, or maybe instead what I want to do is get straight to an editor so I can start interacting with the database via SQL. So if I right click on the connection name, I get Open SQL Worksheet. And now I can start running queries. So the ubiquitous select star from employees, and Control Enter is the keyboard shortcut for executing queries. And by the way, the keyboard shortcuts are programmable, but we've tried to default our keyboard shortcuts to what you've already learned in the old SQLDev. So here is a grid showing the results of my select star from employees table. The grid has a lot of the same features as you have in the old SQLDev. So I have the single record view. I can apply sorts by doing a double click. And of course I can do an export. So with export you just pick the file format you want and then choose the file. Now as an update that's coming up very, very soon, we'll also have the ability to export not just to a file but also to the clipboard. So really quick and easy exports. I can do more than just execute a single query to a grid. I can also execute this as a script. So just like in the old SQLDev. I got 100 rows here, and I've got like a page every 10 rows. So, you know, all of the old SQL Plus or the new SQLcl tricks work here. So I can do set page size 200 and even do set SQL format CSV. Click this button to clear the output. And then we'll run this as a script again. And there is my script output. So this stuff isn't new for you. What is new is our integrated command line experience. So click this button instead, and we'll open a terminal using our SQLcl command line interface to the same database, take the contents of the editor, and execute it. So it's able to reuse the connection properties that we're using to create connections in the extension to then come down into the terminal, spark up SQLcl, connect to that same database, and take whatever's in the editor and run stuff. Now this is a separate connection, and this is actually a whole separate environment. I'm not tied to this worksheet anymore, and now that I'm in the command line I can do anything else that I want. Now I'm not going to do like a full SQLcl demo here. I have a video for that I'll share in the description, but just in this example I could say, oh, I don't know, info employees. Just tell me more about this employees table. So info is like an advanced version of describe. It'll show the comments, the primary keys, the constraints, the indexes. I know the employee ID is the primary key because it's got this asterisk character. I can see the table comments, I can see the column comments, I can see the indexes, and I can see the foreign key constraints. Now when I'm done down here, I can just hit the little trash can button here and it'll destroy that terminal and destroy that session as well. Alright, so VS Code things, I can make this text bigger. I can just hold the control key and use my mouse scroll to make it as big as you want. That's nice. I'm in dark mode. It's something people have been asking for in SQLDev forever. If you right click and open the command palette, this is a VS Code thing. I can just say preference, browse, color themes, and now I can just switch between until I find something that I like better. And I even have extensions for themes. Like here's an old Star Trek The Next Generation Elcar's theme. We'll go back to dark mode. There we go. Now, I can open objects directly from the tree, but I can also open objects directly from the editor. So let's go look at this employees table. I can literally right-click and say Open Declaration. And our extension will say, hey, let's go look for this object in the dictionary. And it's found it in a couple different places. So there's a table called employees in the current schema. If I double-click here, it'll just open it. And this is very similar to what it looks like in the old SQLDev. So I've got the columns page, the data page. Now the data page, I'm not going to demo this, but I can change the data in here. So I can literally change Nina's salary. That's not high enough. I just lied. I guess I can demo it. We'll give her an extra 0. Now I can see that there's a pending transaction here because this is highlighted, and I can hit the commit button and we'll post that. And down here in the output panel, you can see the work that was actually done. So Nina's making a lot of money now. We, of course, have the SQL page. So this will generate the DDL for the table. Comes back nicely formatted. Now, you might be like, hey, where are all the storage clauses? This is configurable. So what I want to do if I want to change anything, I want to come into File, Preferences, Settings. Because this is the VS Code settings. They have an extensions page, and you'll come down here and you'll see there's a SQLDev extensions page. And you want to go to the DDL page. And then on the DDL page, I could say, let's include segment attributes. Now I don't have to hit the save button, it's just done automatically. Close this, come back, refresh, and it will have generated the DDL slightly differently. Come to the indexes page. So we have a whole bunch of indexes. I can click on one of these indexes and figure out what's going on with the index. So you'll see some of these detail pages around the editor. Here's a nice little trick. Navigating the contents of the dictionary, we're showing it to you as a file system. So if I don't want to look at the employees table, if I want to come over and look at a different table, I just click on employees here like a breadcrumb and I say, hey, let's go look at the departments table instead. And it switches over for you. Let's close this. Let's close this. Let's come back to the tree. Let's drag and drop an object. But instead of dragging and drop an entire object, let's drag and drop some columns. So I want first name, last name, salary, commission percent, and hire date. Drag this to the editor, ask for a select statement, and it's just generated that code for me. Control Enter. There's that. Now maybe I only want to see rows where commission percent is not null. So I can type. By the way, you can see the insight is kicking in immediately. So it's helping me with keywords. And if I hit Control Space, it'll bring up the list of columns for the table. Now I can say is not, or is null. I can also say is not. Now, I know how to type this stuff, but I'm just showing you what the insight's capable of. So if I hit Control Enter again, now I'm just seeing the employees where they actually have a commission percent. And of course I can bring this up so I can see more. And if the text is too big, again, I can just make it smaller if I want. If you build a query from scratch, select star from, here's a list of all of the objects in my schema. Regions. So if I do this again in SQLcl, we have the same trick down here. So I can say select star from employees, where, and I have that tab, I get a whole list of the columns here. And if I hit the tab key again, I can navigate between them. And Control R says execute immediately. set SQL format insert. Run that again. Now, get rid of this, come back up here. SQL history. We maintain your SQL history. So control up down takes you through the history. So these are all the queries I've ever ran before. And if I want to see all of these, I can simply come here to query history, or I'm sorry, SQL history, and see everything I've ran, where I ran it, how long it took to run. We even maintain the scripts for you too. So here's an anonymous block where I'm calling a package function. Maybe I want to learn more about this package function. So we support PL/SQL too. I can right click on this and say peek. So here's the actual definition of the package. I've actually called the package, it's a function. And I've got a function in here that does work, so I can actually see what it's doing. Or, instead of doing a peek, I could also say go to declaration. You can always right-click on a connection and ask for a new SQL worksheet. And now, you're limited to what you know how to do with SQL or PL/SQL. One last thing, let's right-click on a table over here, and you've got a whole lot of options. So say I want to briefly, disable all of my foreign key constraints. You just right-click on the table and ask to do that. Disable related foreign keys. And so in this one, there's not really any questions to answer except, hey, are you sure you really want to do this? Now, the nice thing is if you click on the SQL page, you can see what we're going to do for you. But that just saves you a lot of typing. It's kind of nice. Before we leave, I'll demo a new feature we just added in our latest update, and that's filtering. So you might have more than 10 tables. You might have thousands of tables. Let's actually go look at a larger schema. So let's go look under down here where it says other users. Now by default this is going to show every user in the database. Let's filter the users first. So I'm just going to click on this funnel icon. I'm going to add a condition. And I'm going to say schema equals sys. Save. I'm going to add one more. Schema equals words metadata. And I'm going to say match condition is any of these. Hit apply. And now my other users list only has the 2 schemas. And then if I look under sys and under packages, we have lots of packages in sys. Now by default, we're only going to pull up the first 1,000. But let's only look at packages that look like a certain string. So add like. So these are just the packages that start with dbms_d. And we have data pump here. That's a fun one. So let's just open that. Now if I expand this, you can see that the spec and the body are both listed. And I can right click open. This is the spec. So again, lots of VS Code things come in handy here. It has a really powerful find feature. If we toggle over to the file view, you get our parser, so you get an outline of what's in the package. It might be easier to find stuff here. If I actually click on here, it'll auto-navigate on the right. That's kind of nice. Okay, that is just a brief overview of what you can do with our extension. I want to let you know that we're planning frequent updates at least every quarter, if not more frequently. And we're going to be bringing over all of your favorite features from the old SQLDev. So if you're asking, hey Jeff, how come I can't use connection folders? Where's my ability to use the DBA panel? When can I start building REST APIs? All of that's coming. And that just reminds me of another new feature we just added. So let me give you a sneak peek of that too before we sign off. So this is the boring text-based plan. It's easy to read though. We can see, pretty much everything we need. But let's look at a visual version of this plan. So I can switch now to this diagram view. And we can see, the information is all still there, but maybe it's a little bit easier to navigate and read. Let's just do a slightly more interesting query. And let's zoom out a bit. You can see there's a whole lot going on this one. So if you're curious why your query is slow or not as efficient as it should be, this might answer some questions. Now, how do I know where the bad stuff is? That's what this thing over here on the right is good for. So we can see that steps 126, 124, and 125 are the most expensive. Here's a hash join. If I click on this, it'll automatically navigate to that, and now I can zoom in. And I can see what's up with step 5. So I got 56% of the CPU cost is happening in this branch of the tree. So this child and everything below it has 56% of the CPU, and this specific step has 19% of the CPU. You can see the IO cost, in, out. So we have nice descriptions of what all these things mean, which is nice if you're new to tuning Oracle SQL statements. But again, you can always toggle this over to the text view. Alright, so that's the end of my teaser. I want to say thanks for sticking with me through this video, however long it ended up being, hopefully close to 15 minutes. And I hope to be doing more content. You can find lots of how-to posts on my blog, thatjeffsmith.com, and I'll have all the relative links, including where you can download and get started with VS Code and our extension in the video description. Thanks everyone. Have a great week. Ciao.